Good morning, everybody. Welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment. As always, if you want to scroll past the morning chit-chat, just scroll on down to the bottom and click on the time code there. And I am looking at the chat room. I wonder if I'm in the right chat room. There's nobody here this morning. How very unusual. Huh. Well, that is... Did we actually get the show going? Are we on the right show? Well, I hope so. Well, this is... I feel like something's wrong here because there is... not a soul in the chat room. Are we actually on the right show? Yes. He says yes. I'm just going to do a little check of my own, little sanity check of my own here, because that is just like that's never happened before. I don't even know what's going on here. So before we really start the show, I'm just going to do a little quick sanity check here. Let's see here. Did I get an alert of being live? I did not. That's interesting. The right chat is there. Was the chat set to public? I have a serious concern that this chat... Oh, there it is. Okay. Whew. Man, you guys are here. Man, that was like the weirdest thing ever. Nobody was here, and it got me all concerned that we were doing something wrong. But there you guys are. Now you're flowing in. Hello, Jesse. Hello, Marvin. Hello, Jim. Hello, Jess. Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Carl. Oh, whew. You know, that kind of thing, you'll scare me like that, guys. No one shows up. You make me feel unloved. That was so weird. And even the chat thing was reporting no one was watching, but clearly they were. Anyway, I blame YouTube. So, hey, things sound mighty nice today because I'm on this mic, because that mic is out in the other room and the lav is out in the other room. And I'm like, oh, I don't have a mic in here. I guess I'll use this one. So there you go. So if we get a little bit of an in and out as I'm moving around in here today, that's because I'm on this mic. I'll try and keep it nice and steady for you. Good morning, everybody, once again. No notification. Yeah, I got that too. See, no notification. I wonder if when I set this up last night, I forgot to set it to public. That can't be, because otherwise you guys wouldn't be here. I don't know. How weird. Anyway, we're here now, and that is what matters. Good morning, everybody. Today we're talking about some fun stuff with time-lapse, trying to play around with that a little bit, and this applies to pretty much every camera you're working with. Doesn't matter if it's a Lumix camera or any other camera. A lot of these things are going to be the same. Some stuff is going to be specific to this, but a lot of it's going to be the same. So I think that's it. We're just going to go get started here. As always, if you want to ask a question and get my attention, make sure you at PhotoJosephMe in the live chat. That is helpful so that I see that flying by. Otherwise, there's just too much chit-chatter, and now that people are flowing in, there is going to be a lot of chit-chatter going by that I'm not necessarily able to sort through. So hit that at PhotoJoseph in there if you can. And there was, I did have an announcement. I was going to show you guys a video. We'll do it tomorrow because I didn't get it linked up ahead of time. All right, let's just do this thing, shall we? Let's get this started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live daily photo show on YouTube every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, as it is right now. If you're not watching live, that's the best way. You got to come in and tune in live sometime. It's fun to participate in the chat, ask questions, and all that good stuff. Of course, if you're watching later, you can always ask questions in the comments, and I do my bestest to get to them or tag them for answering on a future show. So today's topic is a little bit of time-lapse. Nothing really advanced, nothing really serious here, but it's kind of a dipping the toe into time-lapse waters. Pretty much as far as I know, every mirrorless camera has time-lapse built into it. I would imagine, I haven't played with mirrored cameras like Nikons and Canons in a while. I know back when I was buying them, time-lapse was the kind of thing you had to buy extra hardware for, but I think it's the kind of thing that's been rolled into a lot of these cameras these days, because you don't have to buy extra stuff for it. Now, there is a whole separate world of time-lapse external controllers that allow you to do things like bulb ramping, which allows you to adjust the exposure over time instead of just setting the camera to auto exposure. One of the fundamental problems with doing a time-lapse of, let's say, a sunrise or a sunset is obviously the amount of light is changing dramatically. And the camera is always trying to expose for middle gray, right? That's what the camera's auto exposure meter is doing. It's trying to set it for middle gray. And so if you take a picture and it's dark out, let's say you start the picture in the dark. You want the picture to be in the dark. You want it to be black, but the camera's not going to give you a black frame, is it? It's going to try and give you a middle gray frame. So it's going to boost the exposure a little bit. So what happens is at twilight, sunset, whatever, you start, and as the light is changing, the scene's getting darker. If you're just using the built-in time-lapse features on the camera, then that scene doesn't really get dark. And we'll see that. I'm going to show you a time-lapse that I shot last night really to exhibit that. And you'll see that it doesn't get as much darker as it should. So there's ways around that, and that's external controllers. I actually don't know if any cameras have built-in bulb ramping. I know it's something I've heard asked for in the Lumix cameras, but just seeing on forums and comments here. But it's not something I've ever actually played with. I do have some hardware to control them in iOS apps, and so there's all kinds of really neat gadgets. It's not something I've ever really gotten into, but it's kind of a fun little thing. And if you're not doing twilight, sunrise, sunsets, then it's a lot easier because you don't have to worry about the exposure so much. So if you're just doing a city street that's passing by over the course of an hour or whatever, you don't have to worry about the exposure changing so much. It can be a little bit easier. You don't have to deal with external controls as much. But anyway, I wanted to talk about it from a couple of perspectives. First of all, the camera that I've got here to use today is this little tiny LX100. It's an older Lumix camera, but it's a really nice little kit. This is a great little camera. There's an LX10 that came out last year. I actually did a video on it in San Francisco. That was we'll link to that up here. That was kind of fun. That was a cool video to do, which wasn't really a successor to it because it had some different feature set, some similarities, some overlap. But the LX100 is still a pretty popular little camera. And there's some really cool features on it. Like, now this is an add-on, but here I'm going to show this to you. Let me get this in the frame here. I should make this a little bit brighter. Get that a little brighter there. Make sure that's focused. All of my normal switching stuff isn't here because it's set up for the big shoot out in the other room. So we kind of had to plaster things together a little bit. But here's, okay, the camera's turned off right now. I'm just not going to turn it on because I haven't plugged it in. Let me plug this in, and then I'll do this. Show this to you. Watch what happens. There you go. As you turn it on, see that how the lens cap automatically opened and the lens popped out. It's just this really cool little neat little gadget in there. We'll put that in the I think it already is in the notes down below, so you can see how to buy that thing. It's a pretty cool little accessory, just so you don't lose your lens cap. Anyway, I also wanted to talk about the power supply. So I bought a cheap power supply for this thing because I figured, this is a neat travel time-lapse camera because it's very small, very compact, very lightweight. You can get a power supply for it, and that's what I'll show you here in just a moment. You can put it on a little tiny tripod, like a little itty-bitty Gorilla Pod or whatever. And it's the kind of thing that you could leave in your hotel room if you're somewhere cool. I brought it to Vegas with me, but I had a crappy view, so I didn't shoot one. But if you wanted to do time lapses all day long and you didn't want to have to leave your main camera behind for that, it's a neat little option. And that's kind of what started this whole process of thinking about doing time lapse with this little guy. So let's start with the power supply. Oh, there it is. Get my coin out here. I need to, unfortunately, let's get this on frame here real quick. Get this into the shot. Here we go. This, unfortunately, this little shoe for the, what do you call this thing, for the Gorilla Pod, gets in the way of the door. So I have to unscrew it, take it off, to get the door all the way open. It opens partially, but it's not enough to get the card out. I don't actually have to take this off completely to do this. I can just loosen it a little bit. So once it's loosened, then it's wiggly enough, and then I can get the door open all the way. So there we go. So this little power supply here, or AC, it's not power supply, AC adapter, that's what I should call it, is, I guess I do have to take that. If I want to take it out, I have to take it all the way out. So let's see here. Let me undo this and take that out of here. And there we go. So we've linked to this down below. Let's get this in frame here so you can see this guy up close. But here is the, come on. It's going to focus on, it's probably too close. There we go. Focus on the right thing there. This is it, the DC coupler. That's what these things are called. DC coupler 4 DMW DCC11. That is probably what this part is, which is the AC adapter. So you put these two pieces together. We've already linked to this down below. And this was really cheap. I don't remember actually what it was now, but it was super cheap. And this is one of those third-party AC adapters or / DC coupler combos that is definitely affordable. So if you're doing anything where you don't want to have to worry about the battery dying, like a time lapse, then this is a great little addition. And for whatever reason, probably because it's cheap Chinese construction, this thing is super lightweight. It weighs absolutely nothing. So bonus for this. Anyway, plug it in. I'm always worried about these things coming apart, so I do the old trick of tie it in a knot and put that on there. There we go. So that can't come undone. But before you do that, you have to plug it in because the way that this guy works, so you've seen the AC door, AC coupler, DC coupler door on cameras like the GH4 and the GH5, where there's a little notch that opens on the sides. You put it in, fold the notch, close the door. This one's different. It's got the little notch as a hole in the door itself. So let's go back to this, and you can see here there's a little hole in there that opens. So you kind of have to thread that through there first. Oops, that'd be the wrong one. Good job, genius. Get that out of there. This is the one that we want. So we got to thread this through here first, and then we can plug this thing in. So I'm going to take it off of this camera because you really don't need to see that close, and thread that thing in and try and figure out which way it goes. One of these directions. Honestly, it does. I guess you could do that after. Maybe it's a better idea to do that afterwards. There we go. That's in through the hole. It's like tying your shoes. Got to get it in the right order. Obviously, memory card goes in there as well. So again, you do have to loosen this and take out the memory card, but you know, you'll live. Okay, so that's on. I got the little mini shoe for the Gorilla Pod. Let's put that guy on. Slap on a Gorilla Pod, and we now are in business. So let's see. Let's plug this thing in. Plug this guy in, and we'll fire it up. We're going to take a look at the menu system for doing time lapses. Alrighty. I discovered, reaching down here today, there's a spider web back there, and we have black widows here, and that looks like a black widow spider web. So we're going to get back there with a blowtorch, and a machine gun, and a broom. Take care of that problem. Okay, so that's the thing all fired up, powered up. That's how that works. Let's turn this back on, and let me show you the menu system in here. So this, it's funny, the LX100 when doing HDMI out, it's not quite the same as using the GH5. We get the menu system out, and we get playback out, but we don't get any video out. So I've set things up a little bit differently here so that once this syncs over to the iOS, to my scaler, which it's thinking about doing, there we go. Now I can do that. Haha, cool, right? So, and that's funny because I actually don't see the menus on the screen anymore. I have to look at my video output. So you have in here time-lapse control, and there goes the thing closing. Under camera control here, you have a time-lapse shot setup. So you click on that or tap on that, and you have a few options in here. So this is, again, this is obviously the Lumix setup. This is basically the same interface in all the Lumix cameras. I don't think it really changes across them. Maybe a little bit, but I don't think it really does. I would imagine that pretty much any camera you're playing with is going to have essentially the same options. Time-lapse is a pretty straightforward process, other than the whole bulb ramping thing. Time-lapse is a pretty straightforward process. You choose an interval, how often you want it to take a picture, how many pictures you want it to take, when do you want it to start taking the pictures. It's kind of it. So in here, we'll start at the bottom here. Shooting interval. How often do I want it to shoot? Do I want it to shoot every 10 minutes? Do I want to shoot it every minute or whatever? Every just 1 second, every 5 seconds? So I'm going to set up a really quick little like 5-frame time lapse here. 10-frame time lapse. So we're going to do every second. And then image count. How many do you want it to shoot? Now I know some cameras will have times built in, like end at this time. Actually, I shouldn't say I know. I'm pretty sure that some cameras have a built-in end at time. The way that the Lumix ones are set up is you set your image count, and below that it tells you what the end time will be, right? So if I go, let's make it a big jump. If I go to 1,000 pictures, you see at the bottom it says end at 2017 May 10th at 9:59, at 10:16, at 10:32, and so on. So depending on the images. And of course, if I change the frequency, that's going to change as well. So it tells you how long that's going to go. And that's based off of a time lapse starting now. If you schedule it, then that time will adjust accordingly. So let's just do one to do 10 images here. Just real simple. 10 image, 1 second apart. So obviously 10-second time lapse. So I set that, and then start time, you can set it to start now, or you can choose to set start time. You can choose when you want it to go. Now, I got to tell you, this is wholly unreliable on a lot of cameras. I shouldn't say a lot of cameras. I know I've run into problems before. I wanted to use this one to do time-lapse things like sunrises and so on. It doesn't always start when you tell it to. And all I can think is that it's a bug in the software. I tried it on the GH5. It worked perfectly fine. On this camera, for whatever reason, it wasn't always starting. So you'd set it for a time, and sometimes it would start, sometimes it wouldn't. And I honestly don't know why. If any of you watching have an LX100 or have any Lumix camera and have experienced where the time-lapse doesn't start reliably, but then figured out how to make it start reliably, please let me know. Put it in the comments. I'll add it to another show. It's one of these things that I've never really resolved. So I would love to know that. Now, that said, setting a start time of now works every time. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to say start time of now, and then we hit start. Now, as soon as I hit start, we're going to lose the image here. So let me just go back to this camera. It is on the back of this now. It says press shutter to start. Well, now it's gone away, but it said press shutter to start for a moment there. Oh, I've also already set this camera to be electronic shutter. You don't have to. You can certainly leave it in mechanical or auto, but by having an electronic shutter, in theory, there is less mechanical movement, so it should, you're not having 10,000 shutter actuation, so that's probably good for the life of your shutter. It is quieter, which is a good thing. So if you're in a hotel and you're setting up a sunrise or sunset and you're going to sleep or waking up or whatever, having that go quietly can be quite a good thing. So I've set mine to electronic shutter. It is now ready to go. All I have to do is push the shutter button to start it. It actually tells me, let's see if I can get this onto screen here. Let's see here. I think you'll be able to see this. Can I zoom in anymore? Oh yeah, I can zoom in a little bit more. Let's focus on that. And you can see there right in the center of the screen that little stacked icon with the number 10 next to it. That's telling me it's going to take 10 shots. So let's just actually go ahead and fire it off. So I'm just going to go ahead and shutter and boom. And you see the countdown there, 9, 8, 7, 6. So there it's taking the pictures and whatever. So there's our time lapse. There, that's happening. So then once this is done, it says time lapse shot completed. And do you want to create the video? So this is one of the things that people will run into. You go, okay, create video now, yes or no. So if I hit yes, it's going to give me some video options. If I hit no, you go, oh, darn it, did I just miss my chance to create the video? So this is one of the kind of cool things about these cameras is that you can go in and create that later. This is very helpful for a lot of different reasons. One being, what if your battery dies? Right? And then you plug your battery back in and it just comes back up into normal mode and you're going, my time lapse, how do I do it? You can then create the video in camera later. We're going to look at that in a second. Or of course you can pull the pictures out and go retouch them and do your time lapse in a computer. We'll talk about that in a moment. But right now this is create video. Now I'm going to say no. I don't want it to do that now because I want to show you how to do it later. So let's just to really drive the point home. We're going to turn off the camera. Okay, these little tiny Gorilla Pods aren't the most stable things in the world. As long as you don't touch it, you're okay. Camera's been powered off. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on now. So we know it's completely reset. It's off. It's back on. Good. And now I'm going to go into the menu. And I will, once it syncs back up onto my screen, I will pull this back up for you, which is going to be any minute now. There it goes. And come on, sweetheart. You can do it. It says TV up there. It is. Just takes time. Okay. So I'm in the play menu. So this is where you got to go. You go to the play menu, and then you'll see time-lapse video. And you click on that, and now I can go full screen here. Let's do that. You click on that, and here's one that I did yesterday, and you'll see, it's kind of hard to see against the light of the trees. Let me go to this one. There you see up in the top left, it says 1,000 pictures. If I go to, oops, darn it. Do that. There we go. Go back to the previous one. It's kind of hard to read against the tree, but it says, what does it say, 883 or something pictures. And then go forward, and there's the one I just did. There's the 10 picture one I just did. So from here, I click the set button in the menu in the middle, and now I have my options for making a movie. So these are the same options that you would have if you had hit yes when it came up at the end of the time lapse and said, do you want to make one? Same exact options. So your choices are, you can choose your quality. What am I making? I can barely read that. 4K 30, 4K 24, full HD, something. I think it says 60. Oh yeah, HD 60, HD 30. And these are just going to depend on what camera you've got, right? Those options are going to be different there. So you can choose one. I'll choose 4K 30. Why not? Frame rate, 30, 15, or 10, so you can go a lower frame rate, but it'll still output at that a video file that is 30 frames per second. But if you choose, let's go 15. If you choose 15, that's a nice simple factor, right? It's half. The 10 would be every third. And what it'll do is that frame will be on screen for longer. So instead of using 30 frames shot for 30 seconds of video, you could do 15 frames shot for 30 seconds of video, or 10 frames shot for 30 seconds of video. It just depends on how you want to build your time lapse. Totally up to you. So we'll go, I'll actually do it slow. I'll say make a 3 frame per second video. And then sequence, you can do normal or reverse. So if you want it to back up, you can do that. So we'll just go ahead and do normal, and we'll click OK. And it says, do you want to create it? It takes a minute to do, and off it goes. So there's a progress bar happening. There it is. And we'll let that finish, and then we'll play it back. So it'll take time. A long time lapse, like the 1,000 frame one that's on there, took, I think, 15 minutes for it to render out. Again, very good reason to have the power supply. You don't want it to be dying in the middle of that. That would be a bit of a bummer. This is, however, done. So let me hit the play menu. And again, I'm going to wait for it to sync back up to the output, and then we'll play that back. And then I'm going to play back some of the time lapses we did yesterday as well. Okay, that's up. Oops, wrong one. Let's go to that. And you see the camera icon. It shows up, up arrow. I push up, and then there's play, and there is the time lapse that we just built. There's the little movie. Let me go back a frame, and you'll notice, so as I go forward and backward, we're seeing the same thing. There it says play video. I go back, and it says sequential play. This allows me to get into the video frame. So let me actually go back again to play video and then back one more time to the sequence. So this is two different files here. This is a stack of all the pictures, 1,000 pictures, and this is the video made from it. So let's go back to the 1,000 picture stack. I shot this morning. So if I just go up, the up arrow, it starts playing through frame by frame, and you can see the count going, and it is basically just playing them quickly. This isn't really a video playback, it's just playing back the frames. Okay, I'm going to stop that. Notice in the bottom left, it says down arrow sub menu. If I push that down, then I get this option to display in a group. You can also upload the whole thing over Wi-Fi, but we're not doing that. We hit display in group, and it's a toggle. Display in group, now the up arrow changes, and I can actually use the left and right arrow keys to advance through. So if you look at the top right side, you'll see it shows what frame I'm on. So I go, oh, there's frame 18, frame 25, whatever. And then I push the up again, and it says playback from the first picture or from the current picture. So I can kind of skip past a bunch of garbage, and if I was still setting things up or whatever, and I just want to play it from there. So you have that option as well. But let me back out all the way. Oops, do not delete. Back out of there. Let me go forward one to the video file that was created earlier, and this is the one that took. Is it going to go? Oh, I think I need to back. No, I don't need to back out one. Where are we going here? Why isn't it switching to my video file? Okay, we're going to reset that real quick. It got choked on there and doesn't want to play that out. Whenever you're doing the video out on this thing, it always does weird things. Okay. Wait for that to come back up. Here we go. Okay, so that's back to there. And let's play video file. There we go. I hit play video. So now it's playing back at the full 30 frames per second. And you can see in here, looking at this one, it's sunrise, but you see how the sky isn't getting that much brighter because I shot it the whole thing minus, I don't know, one and a third stops or something like that. But we're not experiencing the true brightening of the sky because of this problem that I talked about earlier, where the camera is trying to make the exposure the same all the time. So we're maintaining the silhouette because of the underexposure, and obviously the sun is still behind those trees there, but it's not much of a sunrise. Now, there wasn't much of a sunrise to begin with, but there isn't. So that's one of the problems. The two other problems I want to point out here. One, there's a sensor spot right in the middle. Beautiful place for it. That's lovely. And also, if you look closely, and I don't know how well this is going to translate through on the YouTube playback, but there's a bit of banding going on in the sky. So this is shot JPEG and assembled in camera, and we're getting a little bit of banding in there, which obviously is not ideal. So building the time-lapse in camera is a convenience. It's cool to be able to do that. But if you really want to get serious about it, you're going to want to pull the pictures out, process them in your computer, and do a whole thing there. And I think I'm going to do that as a separate thing. I might do that as a video for PhotoJoseph's and just do a little kind of simple building of a time-lapse. But I'll tell you right away, some of the things you can do. So if you're shooting, and these are the kind of things I'll cover when I do that video, but I shot JPEG only just to save space and because I'm going to build a video out of it and it's super easy. And that's probably fine. You probably don't need to shoot RAW. Even with the JPEG, you can still do things like go into Lightroom, fix that sensor spot because that spot's not moving, and then sync that across all of the other pictures. So you got 1,000 pictures, fix the sensor spot, clone that or heal that in the center of the image, and then sync that across all of them. Also with the banding in there, because this is just an 8-bit file, this is really the big sky gradient, maybe you want to add a little bit of noise to it. So I could add a little bit of noise. So again, I can sync that, right? I'm going to go fix that spot in the middle, add a little noise, and now output those as JPEGs, again, at whatever size that I need, whether I want to do 4K, 1080p, or whatever I'm doing. I had set the camera to shoot 16:9, but if you shot full aspect ratio, whether it's 4:3 or 3:2, depending on your camera, you can now do your cropping later, because do your cropping in Lightroom and export out those as a batch. You could also do things like, once you've created out that video, let's say you export out a 4K size file, but you're just going to actually even do bigger. Let's say you do bigger. You do full resolution, full 20 megapixel resolution, 22 megapixel, depending on your camera. Output that, create a QuickTime movie that's that size, and then drop it on a 4K or 1080p timeline, and you could, over time, push into the file. So you could simulate a camera, it wouldn't be a camera push, but kind of a camera cropping, and it's simulating a push as long as there's nothing in the foreground to give away that non-parallax error, non-parallax distortion that's happening. So you could do that. You could, once it's on the timeline, you could do things like do a color grade to make it darker to begin. If you're doing a sunrise, start it darker and ramp that up so you get some of that exposure ramping that you missed by having it just done in camera. So lots of different things you can do. We'll play with that in another video another time. But that's some of the stuff that you can do in there. All right, let's take a look what's going on in the comments. I think I kind of talked about everything I was going to do there. I think I kind of jumped the gun and skipped past the comment part in the middle. But let's just go back into the comments now and see what's going on, because there are quite a few flying by. Kevin Wright says, fun though time-lapse is, will you also demo stop motion? I only discovered the awesome onion skinning feature on my GH5 last week. Yeah, I will have to do that. Who's calling me? Go away. Yeah, you know, I've never really played with stop motion, but I will. And I don't remember if I've got that slated for the GH5 training course or not, because it's pretty esoteric, but I will do it on that. That's a good idea. I like it. Sheila's saying, what? Onion skinning is an awesome thing to have. So many hidden tools in this camera, right? GH5 is full of good stuff. All right, Silly, good morning. Silly says, I've always just sped up my video for shutter speed reasons, but then I was told doing that doesn't always give you the right motion blur, so I'm interested in doing more time lapses now. Right, that's, yeah, if you're just speeding things up, then your motion blur might change out a little bit. One of the, what do I add here? One of the problems with letting the camera change exposure, other than what I've already talked about your metering not being, your camera always trying to meter for middle gray and not getting that darker to lighter view. One of the other problems is as the camera changes exposure, because it goes, oh, the scene got brighter, now I have to go from f4 to f5.6. That will be a noticeable change in brightness, right? You will see a little jump in the video, another little jump, and another little jump every time a setting changes, whether it's changing the shutter speed or the aperture, whatever, you'll see it. This is one of the other advantages of time ramping, bulb ramping software that controls the camera externally. And I don't think you could control an LX100 this way, but if you wanted to put it into your GH5 or Canon 5D or whatever, that will do shutter speed ramping. It basically, what it does is you put the camera into bulb mode, and it goes, instead of having to go from 100th of a second to 125th of a second, it can go from 100th of a second to 101th of a second, 102th of a second. 102th of a second. And you can do it that way, which the camera itself cannot do, but you can do in bulb mode when an external device is controlling it. So that's one of those things. And that gives you those smoother exposure ramps. For people who get serious into time lapses, there's a lot of external stuff to add. Sheila says, where'd it go? Sheila says, FYI, I find tutorials skip important steps starting with all the button settings and that grayed out problem and how to fix it. If you're talking, Sheila, something specifically in here, let me know, and I'll see what grayed out menus they might have. I started pretty much from scratch on this, I think, other than telling you to put it in electronic mode. I showed you that I just did that, but I think you can figure out how to put the electronic shutter on. But let me know if there's something specific, and I'll definitely go look at it. Adrian says, can you do focus stacking time lapses on the GH5? A focus stacking time lapse. Okay, so you'd have to do, no, you can't, because you would have to do a focus ramp, which is done with 6K photo repeatedly over and over again. You'd have to manually do it. So no, I can't think of any way to do that. Even with an external controller, I don't know of anything that would control that. If you could have an external controller, think about this. I wonder if you were to take just the standard manual trigger for the camera, and the one that I've had up here before, you just push the button, it takes the picture, and locked it, put it in 6K photo mode. I wonder if it would ramp it, shoot it, and then reset and repeat because you still got the button down. I kind of doubt it. I can't think of a really good, easy way to do that other than manually hitting it. Interesting question, though. Worth exploring. Explore it and let us know what you find, Adrian. That sounds cool. Let's see. Beardy Face says, when is it better to use electronic shutter versus mechanical shutters? Beardy Face, were you the one who posted that comment? There's a whole comment about electronic versus mechanical shutters that is going to get addressed in next week's Q&A. So I'm not going to get into it now because I do have that already slated for whole discussion, but we will be talking about electronic shutter versus mechanical front curtain and mechanical rear curtain shutter. It's a topic that came up in my comments, and I've already slated it for answer. And if it's your question, Beardy Face, then stick around Monday's show. That's where we'll address it. I'm not going to jump into it now. Sheila says, I wasn't speaking about you so much, okay, as tutorials I generally find on YouTube and online articles, mentioning as food for thought. Yeah, it's one of the challenges when you're doing any kind of tutorial, and this just goes for anybody doing tutorials about cameras, is it's very easy to start from the way I've got my camera set up, right? I've dialed in my camera this way. So now when I teach you how to do feature X, I go in and I activate this menu and so on. And then you go to do that and you go, well, the menu's grayed out. Why is it grayed out? The only way to completely supersede that problem is to reset the camera to factory and to say to the audience, if you reset your camera to factory and then do this, these are the menu steps. The problem is nobody wants to do that, right? No teacher nor student wants to reset their camera to factory every time you do something. So it can be a little bit of a challenge because you never know what things the viewer, has already enabled or disabled in their camera. For example, let's just say that I was going to show you how to do HDR. Well, one of the steps before I can show you how to do HDR is I have to put the camera to shoot JPEG only. If it's set to RAW plus JPEG, that's not going to be available. Now, that's a really obvious example, and as a teacher, I would clearly say, hey, you have to set it into JPEG. But let's just say that that wasn't such an obvious thing. That would be one of those where it's grayed out for you because you haven't set it to JPEG, but I forgot to tell you that, or I didn't tell you that because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. So I know it can be hard. It's one of the things that separates really good teachers from less than good ones. But I do try to make sure that I point out all those things as we go as much as I can. Okay. Kevin Wright says, I wonder if tethering will give you a way to explicitly control focus. I don't know anything about the tethering that's coming other than that it's coming to the GH5 we're talking about now. I'm very excited for it. I promise you I will be talking about that at length once it gets here, but I have zero knowledge of it other than it's coming. And I don't have a laptop with USB 3, which is a bit of a bummer because then it'd be really fast, but c'est la vie. USB-C, not 3, whatever it's called. Okay, I think that's that. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about on here? I don't think there was. I think I kind of did everything. I was going to skip some stuff, come back to it later, and then I just went straight through it all. So I guess that's everything on there. That's basics of time-lapse on here. Super simple, straightforward to do. Like I said, I will do a video on taking out the files and doing them in here, but it's not going to be a live video. That'll be something on the PhotoJoseph's.expert site. But that video will be on this YouTube channel as well. So it's kind of blending things together a little bit, probably more than I should, but it's just, this is where the exposure is right now, so that's what's happening. So that's that. Let's see, what else do I want to do? Let's talk about, let's let the system unlock. That's always a helpful thing. Unlock, unlock, unlock. Anybody else find that unlocking with the Apple Watch is not the most efficient way to get into your computer? Sheila says, great show, and thanks for all the info. You're quite welcome, Sheila. There we go. Now it's not, now it just wants my password. Okay, let's do this. Let's bring up the podcast. We haven't talked about that in a bit. There we go. Podcast. If you haven't checked this guy out yet, the PhotoApps podcast. The latest episode is out with Fundy Designer. Fundy Designer is a super cool app that allows you to create books like wedding albums, portrait books, that sort of thing, in what I would say is a innovative and really easy and fun way to do. I was super impressed by the software. I'd never seen it before the podcast, so I got to experience it firsthand, which many of you I'm sure will as well when you watch it. Really, really cool, really fun. I'm like, this is cool software. It makes me want to go do wedding albums, even though I don't do weddings. But do check that out. You can find that at photoapps.expert. Just click on the podcast button or it'll be near the top. Or go to iTunes and search PhotoApps Podcast or just search PhotoJoseph. You'll find it there. Or, of course, it is here on this YouTube channel as well. So it's all over the place. Watch it however you like. But, of course, if you subscribe in iTunes, then we like that because we get to see all of you subscribing, which is cool. And then you get it. You don't have to think about it. It's just there. So do check that out. So I'm going to throw one more at you guys because this is still fairly new. The workshop, photojoseph.com/workshops. This is for the new Oaxaca workshop. Super, super cool. Do check that out if you haven't. Even if you're not going to go, if you haven't watched the video yet, go to photojoseph.com/workshops and check out the video of our last workshop. It was a lot of fun, And if you haven't signed up for that newsletter, you can sign up for it. Obviously, a free newsletter, and it's just there's a kind of a sub newsletter that is for the workshops, where when there's updates or workshops upcoming, then we announce them there first. And we did announce this one there first about a week ago, and now it's open to the general public. So a couple of seats have been filled already. So there's only 8 seats available. So if you're thinking about coming, do it. Sign up, get in there, come join us in Mexico. It's going to be crazy fun. All right, guys, I think that is enough right now. Ben is giving me grief about YouTube. This is where the exposure is right now. Hey, exposure, YouTube, what are you going to do? That's where it is. All right, guys, I'm out. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.